One of the most used and unorganized public health issues is the process of disaster preparation. A disaster is an occurrence to which an extreme event happens at a higher rate than the community's ability to cope with the event. So I want to implement a upgraded community emergency response team. The affected parties for this particular public health issue is everyone. A disaster can occur at any time, at any place, and can affect anyone. The policy that I'm proposing will work along four basic principles. The first would be to identify and analyze the pre-impact conditions that causes community vulnerability to disaster impacts. The second principle would be to identify the areas that would be most affected by the disaster. This would include low income and impoverished areas, also areas with a higher concentration of ethnic minorities. The third principle would be identifying specific event conditions data to determine the level of the disaster impact. And finally, the fourth principle would be to gain an understanding of the process for the disaster impacts to allow the planners the ability to identify the proper emergency management interventions. People are highly vulnerable during disasters. Environmental extremes such as temperature, chemical exposure, and pressure can cause illness, injuries, and in some cases, death. The three most highly impacted of these circumstances would be the very young, the very old, and those with weakened immune systems. Retrospectively, to what myth portrays of disaster impacted individuals, they are usually very adaptive during these times. To keep this mindset in place, the planners for disasters can keep that momentum among the community by being ahead or working in conjunction with where the disaster is. Also, keeping the community abreast of what's going on. Lack of information in a disaster time frame is really what gets people uneasy. It's what makes them nervous. It's what makes them panic. Without being properly informed, people may have a tendency to seek confirmation of the initial indications of an emergency before taking protective actions, which can result in taking the actions too late. The implementation of emergency preparedness practices will reduce the physical impacts of a disaster. This decreases the amount of casualties and, in some cases, the amount of damages. This implementation will also indirectly reduce social impacts. In conjunction with the emergency preparedness, we want to have recovery preparedness. This will assist with the reduction of the disaster's social impact. Implementing a CERT program or community emergency response team will help individuals and communities be better prepared for disaster impact. This will help with light search and rescue, fire safety protocols, and disaster medical protocols. People who live in high impacted areas and low income neighborhoods may not have the means to become CERT trained. The cost is a variable of about $125 per person. This amount is not much compared to the amount of lives that will be saved as a result of the implementation. My program allows for all who want to take part in the training to come. Even if they choose to forego being a part of the team, they would have the necessary knowledge to help themselves and their families, and maybe even their neighbors during a time of disaster. When training is given, there will also be additional training given on how and when information will be given and put out. There will be teams for radio because some people, or if electricity is down, they may have radio access. There will be broadcasting until lights are out and people can't get their information through the news. And also, there will be a team to get ahead of social media because now you can keep battery power on your phone for longer with having solar chargers and chargers that don't have to be plugged in. So the key is to get ahead of the social media. My plan goes beyond the standard CERT protocols and processes. Learning from past disasters, if social media reports the truth before it can be cited by the professionals, the public gets into an uproar. The benefit of my plan would ensure more lives saved and less panic. With this policy in place, we will know what to do when it's necessary to do it. Information and knowledge of process is key in a disaster situation. That is what people want. They want to know that they are getting the facts, and they want to know the situation is under control as best it can be. And when it's not 100% utterly and completely in control, there is someone following up to make sure that needs are still being met, again, as best they can be in the situation. Yes, it's going to take time for campaigning for individuals, for training purposes. Yes, it's going to take funding. It costs money for training. It costs money for materials. But these are tax-paying individuals. And ultimately, shouldn't their tax dollars help keep them safe? You are the legislature. You are the people that they put in office. You work for the people. So in this, I can just say, help the people, because in this, it's not where you're doing a service and you're saying, okay, well, we're just, giving a handout. With my program, you are helping people to be able to help themselves. And that's all I have to say. I hope you vote correctly. Um, Thank you for listening.